How's it going, everyone? It's Chow here, and today we are going to talk a little bit about survivorship curves, so let's get started. Now, there's really not a lot to lecture over in regards to this topic. It's just looking at different charts and knowing which is which based on some pieces of information. So in reality, I think the best way to handle this and get ahead on studying and get ahead on the exam is really to just memorize it, since there's only 3 of them. So survivorship curves can be derived from data in life tables. And there are 3 different types. You have type 1, which is high probability of survival to adulthood. Type 2, which is constant rate of mortality throughout the lifetime of the organism. And then lastly, type 3, which is a very high rate of mortality at younger ages. But then that mortality kind of tapers out and plateaus. So what's really fascinating is that you can graph these, and this is honestly what it looks like. You have type 1, which is shown over here, type 2, which is shown over here, and type 3, which is shown over here. So remember, type 1, high probability of survival to adulthood, so relatively high probability of surviving in the adulthood, and then it tapers off, and your mortality increases with age, so the number of survivors ultimately decrease with age. And then secondly, we have type 2, which is just a constant rate of mortality throughout life, which is shown here, so just kind of a linear decline in the number of survivors over time. And then lastly, we have a very high rate of mortality at younger ages for type 3, which is shown over here. So you can see that there's a dramatic decline in the first year or so in terms of the number of survivors, but over time, the number of survivors kind of taper out. And so type 1, type 2, and type 3. And it might be good to know that type 1 is often associated with large mammals like humans, and in this case it looks like Dall sheep. Type 2 often associated with songbirds, so like this thrush over here, I believe. And then type 3 is associated with many types of plants and also other organisms like sea turtles. So when you're looking at survivorship curves, one thing to know is, first of all, just memorize which is type 1, which is type 2, which is type 3, and what's associated with them. And then also maybe be able to think about how an example might apply to a certain survivorship curve. So maybe if I say something like sea turtles have really high mortality rates when they're young, but once they get older, they have relatively stable survivorship or something like that. And so if you have these statements, you should be able to derive which survivorship curve best fits the given example. And if you can do that, then you're really set for the exam. So really that's all I have for survivorship curves. It's a pretty straightforward topic. I think most students just kind of struggle in terms of associating a given example to whatever survivorship is going to be the answer to it. And so that's something that might appear on the exam, and it's just something that you kind of have to condition yourself. First of all, just memorize the survivorship curves, and then maybe think about different examples that might be associated with each one. So ultimately, I hope you found this video useful, and as always, best of luck studying, and I will see you in the next video. Take care.